Guys, welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod with Grant Hushek with us today. He's a digital nomad. He is operation manager at Hampton, co-founder at closingcopy.ai. And we were talking about Montreal prior to this. But before we do, Grant, can you briefly introduce yourself? Tell us what you're working on nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spend much more than half my time working at Hampton, doing all things automations and operations, and also working with global talent, making sure that we can have a very small team doing a lot of output. And then I'm also building closing copy on the side, trying to spin up an AI SaaS, just like everyone else, trying to get in on the gold rush. So it's been a lot of fun experimenting in that area.
First, the nomad journey, where did it started? Tell us the why behind it and the insights and the skills that you've gained from being a nomad for that long.
Yeah, absolutely. I started moving around a lot because actually it started out with Montreal. I realized that I really loved kind of the walking city. I was there for about 3 months, and I actually ended up meeting an Italian woman while I was living there, and we did long distance for 2 years. And as soon as I finished up my studies, I knew I had to get over to Europe to be with her. So that was the impetus between or for me moving over to Europe. And we moved to Madrid right away. Been there for about two years now, and I'm currently in Paris. So jumping around, really enjoying both seeing cultures, but also getting to work and do whatever I need to. You know, when you have a good co-working pass, you can kind of find a good desk and hunker down for a few hours and get some good workout.
So there's a global trend out there that is not being spoken enough nowadays. I'm not sure that the global impact it will have, but it's basically Westerners that are somewhat entrepreneurial and digital nomad meeting a girl and then go and live in that girl's country. I cannot tell you how much guys I spoke with on this podcast, probably like 10%, in which this is the case. With that being said, with that trend, let me test your brain here. What business idea would you come up with that trend?
Oh man, the one that I've come up with that I think is most suited for what I've learned is that, and I don't want to offend anyone, but in Italy, the general finance knowledge, I would say, with people in their 20s just isn't as well developed. And not to say it's very well developed in the US either, but I've noticed that the baseline is not as far along as the US. So I
In
think
Spain
some
too.
sort,
I'm
yeah,
gonna offend Spain also.
I would say that some sort of like, compilation of TikToks or that type of very punchy content that is a free course that anyone can sign up with. You either partner with the high schools, but make something very punchy, very obviously in the local language, well done, beautifully made, as they say, but then have that siphon into the fact that, if a neobank was there to capture and explain to people how a credit card works and how that could build credit for a loan in the future for a house, like those types of things just aren't well understood. So I would love to see some sort of like free course as your lead gen funneling into a neobank that is, or, neobank just sounds fancy, but like in a bank that can then support those people and put them on a path to financial success in the future for a mortgage or some sort of larger credit purchase.
And how's that related to the trend of Westerners coming in other
Ah,
countries? Yeah,
no, that's a good point. That's mostly from my experience being with my
because
fiance, spending time with Italy.
okay. A quick low-hanging fruit on that one would be like a dating agency. So you start with a young guy starting his business in his 20s in the US, and you tell him, okay, go spend some time in Colombia. We'll help you find a nice person there, and then we'll also arrange the back funnel. So once you're in the relationship and you think you have the one, we will help you like actually come and live with that person. And it would be some kind of relationship manager, but there would be finances as well involved. Okay, now what's the next steps? Having a dog. Okay, what's the next step after that? Buying a house, the wedding. It would accompany that person from their first nomad journey to their later stages in life, the taxes, where to go, where to live, and so forth. I mean, it's probably a bank could do that, could be a branch. The only thing that I see with like large companies is that they're incredibly risk averse, and they are not early adopters. It takes them forever to realize that these trends are happening, and it takes them even more time to act upon them. But fortunately, on your side, you started acting quite quick on the AI trend with closing copy. I love the idea. Like me, I started my career in real estate marketing. Unfortunately, advertising for realtors. And yeah, it's such a simple idea, right? Like you make a nice description of theirs. So and then my brain is asking like, okay, how does he do that? Is it like scanning the images and trying to describe these images? That's fucking genius. How many other folks are doing that?
Yeah, I believe right now in the space, there's about 5 people that I'm aware of, both in Europe and in North America, that are focusing on the same product. And I think it could be a winner takes all on the B2C side. Um, but it's the integrations play that's now become very obvious to us that that's something that we need to focus on, right? Is getting in being as close to the agent's normal path as possible. Because if you make a B2C run, you're going to have to bring people to your platform, and that's concerning. So there are definitely competitors in the space, and winning those integrations is very important. But you mentioned something really interesting about, scanning the pictures and getting the copy. I think that that's really that's where we all want to be. We want to have, give us your pictures, we'll write the descriptions, and then you pair the picture with the content and automatically upload it to a social media platform. That's really, I think, the best case scenario of where this product goes. And the way we kind of view ourselves right now is that you build the screwdriver, the wedge that gets you into market, gets you into people's brains. And then as the continual development of the AI models comes, you get multimodal and you're able to do that image to text and then combine those in post. When that thing comes around, you have a much higher price ticket that then can be built on and upsold to with your existing market that's using the screwdriver.
Right. This one you're building with a co-founder, right? He's doing the technical thing, or
Mm-hmm. He has
okay.
a background in marketing um, with real estate, so that's kind of where the idea came from.
Okay, and the platform, is it no code? What are you using there?
Yeah, the MVP is completely built on Bubble.
Love it.
Yeah.
So the more complex thing, let's say the image scanning stuff, what would you use to actually build that?
Yeah, I think we're watching all these models come out with their various products, right? GPT-4 is supposed to be able to do image recognition, so I'm still waiting on seeing that. I'm hoping that that comes out soon, and then it's just a matter of training it. And if we need to do, show it 1,000 pictures of a kitchen, and will it eventually be able to recognize what type of appliance it is? Like that would be amazing. Do we need that though? Do people care about those things? I don't know. Like if is it just the granite countertop, or is it just that there is a finished kitchen? Those are things that we really need to test with our market and real estate agents and make sure that we're not overbuilding. I think that that's going to be a concern for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a really fascinating space, but also I know that there are companies like Aleph Alpha that's already built a multimodal system, and we've talked to them. So trying to use what's available, but also keeping an eye on what's coming around the corner.
Okay. And if my understanding is right now the AI component is straight up from quick integration with Bubble and OpenAI's ChatGPT, right?
Yep, correct.
I need to try that in Bubble. Bubble is like 30 bucks a month, 60 a month.
Depends on what capacity of throughput data you want, and then how many collaborators are on the platform.
Okay. I'll check it out for sure. And I also have the founders on my pod, and let's see what they have to share. Um, when do you want to officially launch with that? Because well, let's start with this. What's your role at Hampton, and how do you split your time between that and your startups?
Yeah, I would say it's probably 85-15, 90-10 between Hampton and startups. It's like you want to give absolutely everything you can. It's a high growth company, and so I'm doing my best to do that and do the weekend warrior thing for closing copy and make what progress we can, right? What I do at Hampton is really a large part of building automations that are net new. But right now, as we've experienced so much growth since launch, it's really about making the existing systems that were built between when I started in October and launch March, all those things now need to be improved and brought up from maybe they handle 60% of what we wish they would do now, getting them up to 100%, and then documenting them and making sure that anyone can look at them and understand them. Though that's really the part that's taking up the most of my time right now, is improving to the new normal or the new need, and then documenting and making sure that other people can enjoy it or enjoy, edit those things when needed.
You think from an automation first principles way of thinking, I have a couple of CEOs that work for me. How can they think that way too? Because yeah, they think from a systematic standpoint as well, but they don't think yet in terms of no code. How did you learn that? And how would you recommend other COOs think that way? Because I think humbly that this is the way to think and to go.
Yeah. I can't speak for the COOs because frankly, I'm still really trying to learn what that role means. I think COO is such a varied role. It can do so many things. But to answer your question on the automation side, I've gotten this question quite a bit. And I think that the first thing to do is write out what your normal processes are in if then statements. So if you know that if someone pays on Stripe, then I would like to send a welcome email and I'd like to create a record in Airtable in a certain place. And I'd actually like to change their status in my lead table. If you can write those if then statements, you're in really good shape. Now, the hard part about Zapier and Airtable is that if I were to just say, hey, go learn these things, it's going to be pretty hard because you don't have direction, you don't have a list of things you need to do. So that's why being in a company is really helpful. If you can have a pipeline of things that need to get done, that need to be automated, and either someone's handing that to you or you're just aware of the processes and you have those if then statements, you're much more likely to be successful learning the platform in the way that I did. Being one of the early members at Hampton, I always consistently had things that needed to be automated that were handed to me. And I had never done them before, but you go into the forums, you read the documentation, and you kind of have that motivation that says, all right, I need to get this done so that the company can move forward. That was how I really ended up learning so much so quickly, is because my to-do list was long, and it still is. It's a great, great problem to have. But it forced me so much to learn in my early months when working with Zapier and Airtable and HubSpot.
How did Sam find you? I think has a knack for finding good talent. And how's it to work with Sam?
Yeah, I applied to join Hampton as a founder when I was working on an old project, and I had no revenue, so I was quickly denied. But in that interview, I actually asked, I'm running out of money. I can't afford the membership. Can I wash dishes for my dinner? Can I work to pay off my membership? And so that idea, kind of stuck with my interviewer. That was Joe at the time, Joe Spicer. And then every month for 3 months, on the first of the month, I emailed him and said, hey, do you have any work I can do? Do you have any work I can do? And finally I got the yes, like, do you know anything about Zapier? I said, no, but I've always wanted to learn. And that's how I got my start. So I think that, that is a testament to just really wanting to be part of something that you could kind of tell was cool. And anything that Sam and Joe do, I have a big, I put a lot of faith in that idea, having good distribution and a higher chance of success. Working with Sam's a lot of fun. It's one of those situations where it's like fun to meet your heroes. He's exactly as you would imagine from the podcast.
Yeah, he's a funny dude. If I would start my own automation agency, where do you recommend I would start that? Because the mental model behind that is that yeah, software is eating the world. Employees are tough to deal with. They're tough to find as well. And entrepreneurs, like me, I don't want 9 to 5ers. And that's 95% of the market. Tough to find, tough to retain, tough to have perform in a company. So I'd rather have a bot do most of these things. That's a mental model behind me starting my own agency, my own automation agency, because I could automate a bunch of stuff for clients, learn myself, and just be like, hey, dude, I can save you 100K a year by having all these processes done. You'd pay software and they wouldn't break, or
Hmm.
they'd rarely break. Let's call it that way. So, how do
Yeah.
you recommend I start? Like, what should be my prices? Who should I go after? What should be my value offering?
Yeah. I think if you're going to start from scratch right now, you can go and think about what your niche is that you find interesting and that you either see, I think Twitter is becoming the new LinkedIn for independent agencies. And so if you want to spend some time in the hustle Twitter, the entrepreneurial side of Twitter, You find out who's active and what the businesses are that seem to be growing, and obviously take it with a grain of salt because no one's verifying what people say on Twitter. But niche down, and it could be newsletters, it could be lead gen agencies, it could be the more specific you get. I think it's with any startup, the more specific you get and you become an expert at that one niche of automation, the benefit there is that one, people trust you because if your landing page says I just do newsletter automations, they're gonna be like, all right, this is my guy. This is the person I need to work with. Then you can also say your prices are higher because you're specialized. Obviously, you have to be able to back that up, but I'll tell you the one thing that I think would be the biggest benefit from being able to niche down is so that when someone comes to you and says, hey, I want to automate some of my newsletter operations, you know already what they need without them explaining it, right? And I think that's the biggest issue with automation agencies, or really a lot of agency structures, is that they come to you and if you don't have that kind of playbook of, all right, this person does newsletters, they have a CRM, they have that, maybe they want to automate the way that they're interacting with their sponsors. If you've done that, been there, seen that, and can tell them, hey, I bet you're having this issue, and they're like, wow, this person's reading my mind. I do have that issue. That establishes you as an expert. And it's only because you may have had one or two clients or just spent enough time doing research and talking to someone, not even trying to sell them, but just understanding their processes, that you can really show them like, wow, I get this business model and I'm here to help you. And it's almost like you don't have to lift a finger, just pay my Stripe subscription and you're ready to go. I think that's a huge benefit. And then on price, quickly, I'll touch on that, I guess. Depends on how big your client is and what their budget looks like. What's their willingness to pay? If someone's consistently doing $1 million in revenue, they're going to be much more likely to pay you a couple $1,000s a month versus someone who's doing $10,000 a month, and maybe $500 is a lot to them. So know who your customer is and think about that before you set your prices.
How can you make that recurring though if it's one-time work? Like what do you price for on a recurring basis? Because MRRs all we dream about. We don't want one-time stuff, small boy stuff.
Mm-hmm.
How can we go recurring when it comes to automations? Like every month, oh, we'll create 5 workflows. How would you go with that?
Yeah, I think that I've derived a lot of inspiration from the guy who started Design Joy. I think it's Brett. Forgetting his last name right now, but if you look up Design Joy, both the website and the guy on Twitter, he has really made popular this productized service idea. And it's something that I find really interesting, where he says, so he does it for design, and he's like, I'll give you 6 designs a month, unlimited edits, quit whenever you want, and you can either pay by month, by quarter, by year, and you get discounted depending on duration. I think that model is very attractive for automations too. And if everyone is in agreement that you're not trying to screw someone over on the amount of time it takes, you could say, loosely, I'm gonna normalize your automations to credits or to tasks, whatever unit you want to call it, and say like, hey, I'm gonna do 15 tasks or 10 tasks a month, but I get to decide whether your automation, as you describe it, is 1 task, half a task, or 3 tasks, right? Because if someone says, I need an Airtable base made with 20 columns, and if something is 5 days away, then an automation needs to occur. That's not 1 task. That might be 3 or 5, and it depends on how much time you think you're going to do it. And there has to be trust between the automator and the client, right? If they think that you're screwing them over on timing, that's not going to work. That's not MRR. But if you're able to establish that trust and say, hey, I'm going to get these things done, I'm going to knock them out on a regular cadence. This is a very large task. Maybe we can break it up into subtasks, and then we can have more transparency on why I believe that this is a 3-unit thing versus a 1-unit thing. I think that you're able to create a system where it is a productized service, it's an MRR situation, cancel anytime, and then that drops into a maintenance play. So I'm just making sure that your automations are running smoothly. If there's an error, I'll debug. If it's halted, I'll debug. And that's just a downsell once they don't need the build phase anymore.
Right. Thank you for that. So for the niche, I mean, yeah, the automation for newsletters, I guess that's more on the upside. I talked with another automation agency founder, and he was more on the sell side of things. I mean, well, newsletter, arguably that's marketing, but if your business is newsletter and becomes ops, whatever. So like niche down with that, maybe have a couple of offers like, okay, I will automate this. I will automate your podcast. I will automate this side of your business. So maybe have a list of that, so that I think it's always useful in outreach, talk about specific stuff with for the client, and have a plan in reserve, and almost a, if you can, some kind of limitless plan, right? So I will do the, like, bugs will happen, I will fix those when they will. I will work on automation of this new Facebook ads campaign. Go with something evergreen so that the MRR never stops. Last question, and obviously mastermind would be a good niche for you, like automation for masterminds. What do you recommend masterminds like mine, for example, do to onboard more clients? Because I've been struggling with the newsletter thing. I use Substack and they don't have Zapier option, so I'm doing it manually, unfortunately. Is it like, oh, the screening, once a person fills out the form, then are they accepted or not, regarding like X criteria, and then subscribe them to a newsletter, and then these reminders? How big is your stack, and what would be the 30-second version of what you would recommend for mastermind automation?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the stack, I counted actually this morning, I have 35 zaps on Zapier, 35 different tasks, running 10,000 tasks a month.
Wow.
I think the most important thing is that first moment, you need to get to some aha moment, just like any product. So either the onboarding needs to be needs to be spectacular, or they need to meet someone else in the mastermind immediately, or receive a personal message. So if you can either maybe switch to Beehive, which I know has Zapier, but have some sort of way that, like, if the onboarding trigger happens, whether it's your email or you check a box in Airtable, they fill out a form. There are plenty of ways to have that trigger, but then immediately it's a Slack message or it's a personal email coming from you through Gmail, through Slack, that says, hey, thank you so much for joining. I really think you'll enjoy this channel, whatever it is, or make an introduction here. Thank you so much for joining. Can't wait to see you in the community, or can't wait to see you contribute to this awesome environment that we've created. Something that just makes it feel personal right off the bat can be automated. It can come from your account. It doesn't have to come from a bot. I think that's a really helpful way to just make someone feel welcome in a new environment.
Love it. Where can people find out more about you, Grant?
Yeah, I think Twitter's the best place. I'm trying to be active there. I think it's just Grant Hushek, at Grant Hushek. Otherwise, I'm happy to help if you want to hit me in the DMs or give me an email. Happy to help.